Zuckerberg said he sort of needs the help of the U.S. government to defend against censorship efforts by foreign regimes. He mentioned Latin America. I know Brazil is being particularly harsh. I actually flew down there for a pro-Twitter rally in Sao Paulo when the government of Brazil was cracking down on its opponents and ordering Twitter not to reveal anything. It was quite. Anyway, I won't try to explain what was going on, but around the world, and you see even in recent days, Prime Minister Keir Starmer of the UK, President Emmanuel Macron of France, Chancellor of Germany, the leader of Norway, all these Eurocrats and others around the world are saying Elon Musk must be silenced. Maybe Elon Musk is so bold because, as Mark Zuckerberg alluded to, they're going to have the backing of Donald Trump to not roll back their First Amendment. It's an interesting battle. As Zuckerberg said, America has the strongest free speech protection in the world. I think that's true. Wouldn't it be something if that empowered global companies like X, Facebook, et cetera, to push back against censorship in other countries? I suppose those other countries could ban American firms, but if Trump was ornery enough, he could sort of react to that too. Help me figure that out, because I think one of the reasons why Elon Musk has been so bold in the last week is I think he knows he's got Trump has his back. I think that's why the Europeans are being cautious too, because they're thinking, how close is this guy to Trump? Why don't you talk a bit about that?
This could be potentially one of the most significant things that the incoming administration can do. My colleague Mike Benz, who founded the Foundation for Freedom Online, has got a great word for it: free speech diplomacy. The United States using its global clout, using the clout it has with its allies specifically to roll back some of these assaults on free speech, not just the free speech of their own citizens, but also the free speech of Americans by trying to destroy free speech platforms like X. And again, you look at Mark Zuckerberg's statement, you look at its specificity. He specifically mentions Latin America, Brazil. He specifically mentions secret courts in Latin America. That, I believe, is a reference to Brazil and their very, very powerful judicial system that has been used in the past, not just to go after X, but also to go after WhatsApp, which is a Meta property. Right. WhatsApp has been shut down in Brazil multiple times because Brazilian judges see it as a way for Brazilian citizens to evade censorship, to share alternative narratives, alternative information that isn't in the mainstream news there. And Zuckerberg also mentioned Europe, the Digital Services Act, this mammoth piece of social media regulation that came into force last year, the European Union. We've done some reports on this at the Foundation for Freedom Online. If you go and search our website for our report on the 2024 censorship blueprint, we found the architects of online censorship in the United States, people who were involved in that government, in those U.S. government-led efforts between 2016 and 2020 and today. They're talking about the European Union as their last hope, the last really powerful government, that really powerful institution that's on their side and has the clout to really threaten companies like X and other free speech platforms. But as powerful as the EU is, they are aligned with the United States. They have a lot of trade relationships with the United States. There are a lot of levers of pressure that the United States can use on Europe, and even more so on Brazil, also on Canada, on the United Kingdom. So that if these jurisdictions start going after American companies, there are a lot of tools in the U.S. government arsenal to a lot of trade pressure, diplomatic pressure, all sorts of things that the U.S. can do to blunt those assaults on American free speech, if not completely reverse them.
Yeah, listening to you describe those non-military levers, the word soft power comes to mind. Hard power, I suppose, is military power. But 25 years ago in Canada, the Liberals in particular talked about soft power. We may not have a military anymore, but we've got soft power. People listen to Canadians. I'm not sure if it was ever quite true around the world. We were a little bit into peacekeeping back then. I don't think it was ever really true. But that's what you're talking about. You're talking about America using the bully pulpit, using trade access, basically saying to other countries, if you enjoy interacting with America financially, diplomatically, militarily, we now have some demands on you. And it's shocking to hear those. Like, I mean, even Canada has not been spared. Donald Trump is making great demands of Canada. He's making enormous demands of Panama. He wants the canal back. He's talking about taking Greenland. So, but that's the Trump way, by the way. I repurchased The Art of the Deal, and I started rereading it because I wanted to understand how Trump negotiates again. And he makes dramatic claims to reset the balance of things. And I think that's his way of saying, I don't always want to go to war, and I don't want to be pushed over either. I'm going to use these soft power tools. And what better way than to basically call the bluff on the world's either real dictators or little dictators and say, you're not going to infringe the freedom on our companies. By the way, that applies to Canada too. What makes me sad about this announcement, Allum, is that I think Zuckerberg said it's starting in America. That doesn't mean Canada. In Canada, I don't know if you know this, you can't even post a news story to Facebook because Trudeau passed a bill called C-18 where Facebook would have to pay $100 million a year to news companies that it linked to. So now if you're a Canadian like we are, you post one of our stories to Facebook, it says this story unavailable in Canada. So that's really damaged independent journalism, but more importantly, it's damaged individual freedom. So I wonder if Trump will be able to wash away that bill from Canada. We need some saving up here too, Allum.
Yeah, and that's a very sad situation for in the independent media in Canada. It's entirely the government's fault. I was actually on Meta's side when it came to that issue because, of course, I mean, if you're forced to choose between propping up the legacy media, paying them hundreds of millions of dollars, and banning them, I think banning them is the way to go. Of course, the legacy media should not be bailed out with hundreds of millions of Silicon Valley dollars. And I'm pleased to say that I was pretty heavily involved in stopping a similar bill in the United States, which would have done similar things, called the Journalism Competition and Preservation Act. Similarly to the Canadian bill, it would have funneled all of these ad dollars to legacy media companies, and it was written in a way that excluded the independent media from any of those benefits. Podcasters, new news websites, any news website, in fact, that didn't have sort of legacy publication numbers that all the old media companies do. So I'm glad we blocked that in the United States. There's also a similar one in Australia, of course. Right. But a very important point because on the use of US pressure, because I already know what the legacy media is going to say in response to this. I know what the censorship industry is going to say. I know what the die-hard supporters of the old woke pro-censorship regimes are going to say, especially in places like Europe and the United Kingdom, where Keir Starmer's in power, and Canada, where the Liberals are still in power. They're going to say, this is U.S. imperialism. This is the U.S. imposing its will upon us. This is, you're unpatriotic if you support these U.S. efforts. Well, hold on a second. For the last 10 years, the U.S. government has been using its soft power for the opposite purpose. They've been using their soft power to pressure other countries to censor even more. In Brazil, the U.S. government funded counter-disinformation researchers. The U.S. Embassy in Brazil even held workshops on combating online media disinformation that included pressuring social media companies, American social media companies, to censor. So they were actually training Brazilians on how to censor wow. American social media platforms. They even funded groups that worked with the Brazilian Superior Electoral Court, the same court that's gone after Elon Musk companies and ordered WhatsApp to be banned. So the U.S. government, if you want to call it U.S. imperialism has for the past 10 years been promoting online censorship in places like Brazil. But in Europe as well, Biden's State Department actually supported the Digital Services Act. Silicon Valley tried to get the State Department to lobby Europe to, dilute that act a little bit and make it less aggressive. The Biden State Department did the opposite. They hailed it as a great step forward. And I'm sure there have been similar efforts in other countries, U.S. government dollars flowing to arms of U.S. soft power abroad to promote online censorship, to promote what they call combating disinformation. Yeah. So, just because the shoe is about to go on the other foot doesn't make it U.S. imperialism, because you're going to have to say the same thing about what happened before.